Hi up, I dare say Starcraft here. We're gonna have a bit of DrunkCraft. My adversary is Bobo. Not exactly the kind of name that inspires fear in the heart of your enemy. To each his own. Seems like a friendly enough fella. Maybe that's his strategy. Kill you with kindness. He'll show up at your doorstep with a box of donuts every day for a decade, causing you to develop type 2 diabetes so bad surgeons will be forced to hack off all your limbs, leaving you a gauze-swaddled stump in a head. Committed to the long game, this one is, but he's gonna get you. Now, there's not much going on this early in the game, so if it's alright with you, I'm gonna tell you about my journey to Peru. Now, I'd fully moved out of my place, and I was crashing on a friend's couch with a backpack, my duds and personal effects, until the travel day arrived. The people I'd signed on with came and picked me up, and I was in one of two big vans, so I got the chance to meet a fair bit of the rest of the team, and I started up a chat with a bloke named Charlie to pass the time on the way to the airport. He asked me if I was excited to see Peru, and of course I said yes. I made a joke that I didn't actually know what it was we were doing out there. He laughed, but he didn't say anything after that. The silence was so strange. So I asked him right out what the point of the excursion was. He said it had something to do with the Oahuan. They're indigenous Peruvians. And I said, yeah, I'd been told that too, but I hadn't gotten more than that out of anyone, so I pressed it. And he said something that perked my ears right up. Gave this roundabout lecture that they didn't want to tell us non-anthros anything.
What's going on?
That in some way we might give away our preconceptions and contaminate their data. As if we'd like tell the indigenous people what it was they were studying. Anyway, I remember so clearly how we got that heaving chest and flaring nostrils when you're all flushed about something.
Not enough minerals.
And at the time, I couldn't figure out why he was getting so huffy. I didn't really buy the premise that if they told us that we'd somehow, just because we weren't anthropologists, ruin the study. It didn't make sense to me. And also, I'd signed on for 30 days. I wasn't very interested in spending an entire month stomping through the Peruvian jungle, carrying these people's gear on my back, but having no idea what it was we were there to do. But seeing Charlie all fired up, I didn't think I'd get much out of him, so I figured I'd leave it for the moment. Just get through the 20-hour flight, see if I could piece together some details when I was there. I can't possibly imagine what the purpose of that nexus is. A lonely outpost in the middle of nowhere. I think I'll send these Marines to dissuade him from that terrible idea. If this is at all a portent of his future play, this should be a fun one. Anyway, after we landed, we piled into buses, ferries, motorboats, the back of a rickety old truck. We did no small amount of walking. And I should say that all the while I'm strapped to a massive pack, my own backpack now in hand, and I'm pulling a kind of fold-out wagon, not remotely adapted to the type of terrain we were traversing. There were 6 people who seemed to be part of the actual research team, and there were 2 fellas who were techs. They'd set up the computers and cameras and stuff. And one bloke I never quite figured out whether he had a specific job, and a guy we hooked up with when we originally landed, but I was the only one dedicated to carrying gear. I had to have lost 5 kilos in the first 2 days of travel alone. Yeah mate, that's where your expansion belongs. And after a long day of travel, I'd get so hungry. We had lots of fresh fruit, papaya and pineapple, and some things I'd never seen before, like breadfruit. Something there we're calling pihuayo. Now don't you laugh at my accent when I'm trying to pronounce their words. There won't be a shortage of that. There was a lot of Spanish being talked around me. And there's also the language of the people we were going to visit. As I said before, they're called the Awahun, or the Ogrona, or the Inya, which means ourselves. And the name for their language means our language. Now isn't that the kind of no-nonsense logic you gotta respect in a people, or what? Yes, I should mention that I'm going mass Raven this game. I'm terrible against Protoss. Well, that's when I try to play a standard game. And the thing I've learned is that I have a lot more fun and a lot more success when I do a completely strange build. I think the reason is I can't stomach doing the same build over and over, so I never get really solid, perfected timings. But when I come up against a Protoss who does, who's got his 4-gate down to a T, if I'm relying on the standard Terran builds that he's used to, I'll probably lose. But if I throw him off his game with something completely strange, I have a chance. That being said, however, I don't think Bobo is exactly the epitome of perfected StarCraft strategy. It does not appear that we're dealing with a military genius thus far, unless that is his strategy, to make me assume he's an idiot, and then at some point in the game he'll reveal his dazzling wit that the drool that had been dribbling down the small bony protrusion on his neck, you might call it chin, collecting in a pool at his feet, it had grown so large and so putrid the whole of my army was drowning in it, gagging and retching from the stench, his dumb blank stare slowly contorting and twisting itself up into a disgusting malevolence as he cackles knee-deep, splashing around in the kiddie pool of his own spittle, ignoring all the arms of drowning men shooting up out of the depths, violently shaking and going suddenly still. I guess that could be his plan. I'll certainly be on the lookout for it now. I'll pack my floaties. See if I can't hit him with some mouth rinse in the meantime. Speaking of mouth rinse, insects. People eat insects. More specifically, the people I encountered in Peru eat insects. And I'm pretty sure I know what insect breath smells like now. I'm not here to judge anyone. To each their own, I always say. And I'm not a squeamish fella by any means. But you'd have to see every last rib of mine before I'd even consider eating an insect. Starting to get just a little bit concerned at this point. I'm at 72 supply. This late in the game, a Protoss can be very dangerous. It's going to require some fancy footwork indeed if he decides to attack soon. See if I can snatch up another base.
Our SCV
What was that? Now that's a new build if I've ever seen one. I think I could just manage against that particular army composition. We got here. Oh, you're not going to get away, mate. I got you. I imagine now he understands what it is I'm planning to do. Remains to be seen whether he'll make functional use of that intelligence. Floating a few more minerals than I might like. Spending too much time supply blocked. And I need more starports. I think it's a good time for me to move out. Maybe I can keep him from attacking my base if I attack his. I really can't let him saturate that third base of his. When a Protoss starts to get a bank, They're very sticky to deal with. That instant reinforcement, warping units continuously at your front door. Well, I can't possibly keep up with that when I'm producing ravens, can I? They take a long time to produce, and I gotta wait for that energy to build up too. Head over there, ravens. I'll be back with you momentarily. I should probably be sure not to run these ravens into a big army of stalkers. Oh, it's ripe for the taking. Let's lay down some turrets. Now, I'm gonna operate on the premise that his army is not far away. And yeah, there it is. I better get out of here. See if I can't harass his other base. Now, he doesn't really have much to deal with ravens. I mean, he can kill the turrets, but he can't kill the ravens. I can just lay down point defense drones like that, and he can't deal any damage to me. Now, those Templar are a bit scary. Feedback is a dangerous thing for a raven. I've been keeping my energy pretty low, so he can't deal a whole lot of damage. I have to say, this expansion of his has seen better days. And that is the danger of having rally points routed to your army. Sending them right into the thick of things. Let's see if I can get everybody to sync up and get out of there. That means you two rogues. And I realise my macro back home is slipping bad. I have to say, I don't think there's much danger of me losing this game no matter what I do. See if I can be a bit of a bother in his main base as well. What a weird place to put a cannon. They will do positively no damage to my turrets. Looks like he just now sees it fit to deal with those turrets in his expansion. And I guess I ought to deal with that macro. Don't actually think I've lost a raven yet, but still a good idea to upgrade the armor. Now I have to say, thus far I've been focusing on the weird part of my trip to Peru. There was a lot about it that was absolutely mind-blowingly amazing. And where I come from is quite a beautiful, breathtaking place. But Peru was sprawling expanses, just dense, unyielding jungle. And everywhere I looked, there was some new creature I'd never seen before. I didn't even know a tapir existed before I went. Weird little trunk dangling from its face. I'd certainly said the word armadillo. And I'd seen pictures, I'm sure. But it's just such another thing entirely, getting right up in one's business. You have a creature called a harpo, and it will melt your heart. It looks so gentle, but it's got these giant ears and these goofy little horns. How dare you interrupt me talking about the harpo? You're gonna pay for this, mate. In the name of that deer-like creature, I will have my vengeance, Bobo. I'll have my vengeance. I have to say, it's quite hard to vow revenge and sound it all hardcore when you have to end the phrase with Bobo. Seeker missiles incoming. It's not going to be a good look for you, mate. Let him go. Oh wait, I have a base over there. The army was quite a lot bigger a moment ago, if I'm recalling that correctly. Finish off these Colossus with a couple more Seeker missiles. Oh, it's so easy to outrun the new Seeker missile. Kinda makes me sad. Not quite sure he understands just how over this game already is. Anyway, in our first few days in the jungle, we were just coming away from a stream, and Tilly, one of the anthros, did that loud whisper. It's like in a whisper voice, but it's still quite loud. Anyway, she loud whispered for us all to be quiet. She pointed off the path a bit, and we all hunkered down the second we saw what she saw. Walking behind a line of trees, not 20 meters away, there was a jaguar.
Upgrade complete.
So muscular, big patch of dirt covering half its hindquarters. He was prowling all tall like he owns the entire jungle, which he does. And he was absolutely silent.
Not enough.
There was the trickling stream, wail of birds,
Base
calls of all the animals out there.
under attack.
You couldn't hear his steps at all. You'd never hear him coming, mate. A bit like these ravens. You'll have no idea they're upon him until they are. Lay down all the Seeker missiles in the world and watch that army evaporate. Goodbye, Colossus. Goodbye, Zealot. See if I can finish this off. No, you're not going anywhere, mate. And now I can spend the rest of the day feasting on your bloody carcass. But the Jaguar just kept going. He didn't care about us at all. I had the most intense adrenaline rush. My veins were throbbing, the heart beating out of my chest. The Jaguar could have killed us all if he wanted. He just walked on by. We waited for another few minutes, and then we just kept going. But it was impossible for me to forget that such an awesome creature was just around the next bend.
Mineral field depleted.
Who knows, watching from a tree or something. And from that moment on, it was a much different experience for me. I felt this profound, awe-inspiring sense of reverence mixed with terror the entire time I was there, just because of that one experience.
Gas.
That's how powerful it was.
Complete.
And it wasn't until I got back and had a chance to really reflect on it, and I realized that's exactly the whole reason I decided to go in the first place. It's the kind of thing, no matter how many days passed back at home, that would have never happened to me. By the end, I had weeping sores and bug bites, aching back. I'd twisted my ankle more times than I can count. I can't possibly describe to you the gastrointestinal distress I experienced from my suddenly and drastically changed diet. It was so constantly humid, the world belching out its foul breath. It's like a steam bath that never stopped, and I was treated like some kind of indentured servant, a second-class citizen, an uneducated buffoon they couldn't bother themselves to share information with. Even with all that, even if there wasn't another positive experience for the entire trip, those few minutes of watching that Jaguar prowl off into the distance would have made it all worthwhile. As it happens though, there was actually quite a lot of interesting, kind of profound experiences there. I actually feel like I'm having a profound experience now. It's as if I'm peering into the deep, cavernous hole of stupidity itself. This is the barren wasteland, invisible to the naked eye, under the cover of darkness, that uncompromising blackness that is ignorance. Why is he letting me decimate his Colossus over and over? I'm taking nearly no damage to my ravens, and he's just throwing army after army at them. I'm just gonna soak it in. Why not? Trickle units in one by one to their death. Just look at this walk of shame, ending time after time in pitiless execution. There's going to be a couple Protoss warriors rattling the pearly gates now. Seems as good a time as any to put this guy out of his misery. I have to say, the Raven is not a difficult unit to counter. Even when perfectly microed, the Raven has glaring weaknesses. These factories on my contingency plan, in the off chance that he gets smart, if I had to guess, I don't think I'll be using those at all. For all you budding Protoss players out there, the worst possible unit to use to assault a planetary fortress is the Zealot. What are those in the Stargates? Looks like they might be Phoenix. Basically, any other air unit would have been better. Phoenix is quite literally the only air unit the point defense drone works against. Of course, it completely prevents the Phoenix from attacking. And that's, as you might imagine, completely debilitating. Either he has the most massive surprise army right outside my base, or the game's over. Don't get many opportunities to play Mass Raven through. Feel quite privileged in a way. Alright, next time I'll be telling you about my experience with ayahuasca. Basically a hallucinogenic trip under the banner of spirituality. Okay, it's been, I dare say, StarCraft, and it looks like I faced down the drooling military genius of our age,
Not enough.
and he turned out to be more idiot than savant.